guys, you've been calling for it. It's finally here, the podcast. Welcome to the first episode of the Bettor Podcast. It's me, Lorenz Köhler, here with Dalmain Favor from Soccer La Duma. And today, our pilot episode, it's everything Bafana ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Hugo Broos has just announced his 23-man squad. There's some surprise inclusions. There's some surprise exclusions. We're going to dig into that, and also obviously our opposition, which is Benin and Rwanda, over the next couple of weeks. So we're starting with Benin on the 18th of November at Moses Mabhida Stadium. Hope you're going to be there. We'll see. And then Rwanda away from home in Butare at the U Stadium on the 21st of November. Both games kick off at 3 o'clock. So yeah, first things first, obviously the 23-man squad was literally just announced. I'm going to go through it in case you forgot a few of the names. The goalkeepers are Ronwen Williams, Veli Motwa, Ricardo Costa. It basically picks itself. Yeah, over the few last squads, we've seen those three has been very consistent. We have Sydney Mobi, Bradley Cross, Grant Kekana, Sibisi, Aubrey Modiba, Sianda Kulu, Motobi Mbala, Kuliso Mudau. In midfield, we've got four midfielders as usual: Tebogo Mokoena, Mtetwa, Jaden Adams, and Spepelo Sitole. Up front, we've got Temba Zwane, Zakele Lepasa, Lebo Motiba, Percy Tau, Oswin Apollos, Mitlali Mayambela, Tapelo Maseko, and Bongo Kuhle Hlongwane. So, Dalmain, we come a long way. So it's very exciting to have you on this podcast, this first podcast. But yeah, let's get into it. What do you think, your first thoughts of just hearing that 23-man squad?
I think decent squad, solid squad. I think they've brought in a few surprises, pleasant surprises though. I think we spoke about it off air where we said there's three staple names that before the squad is even picked, you can already write it down. You know it's there. It's that of Ronwen, obviously as the captain and the best goalkeeper in the country. Yeah. You're not surprised to see him there. Another one is Nico Mobi, who regardless of form, Hugo Broos sees him as a Bafana player, and he gets selected. Yeah. And similarly with Zakele Lepasa, we know that he's currently in a slump of form, but he gets selected for the national team because, according to Broos, he gives him what he's looking for.
What is he looking for?
Clearly not goals, because that's not what he's giving at the moment. But I think also I think
banter aside, he's giving him what is. I mean, he scored against Morocco. He scored one of the goals that took us to AFCON for Liberia. And I think one of the things that he did mention is that Zakes follows tactical instructions. If he wants him to drop deep, he's got pace to get forward. He presses high. And I think it's one of the things many coaches speak about is that football fans don't often see the off-the-ball work.
And also what happens in training. We aren't privy to that. The 15 minutes that they give before sessions with open days is not enough. So you find that he is a hard worker. We know that he puts in the graft. I mean, if you go to his Instagram, you see that he's been putting in so much work with Black Vreka, who's working with a lot of footballers. So again, and also maybe the attitude. These footballers are human beings. Sometimes you find that someone might be going through a slump in terms of form, but you find that in terms of the group dynamic, you work so well. He's there to help the new guys out, which there's quite a few. I mean, the Oswin Apollos. So you find that he is giving him stuff that maybe we are not privy to, and also give him the benefit of the doubt. Why I say that is because Lepasa is a confidence player, and Broos appears to be giving him the confidence that he needs. So hopefully it bodes well for South Africa, bodes well for Pirates.
Yeah, and mainly maybe he also integrates well with the squad. He's a likable character. Yeah. We've seen like this behind-the-scenes snippets, like in the Bucks camp and whatever, where Zakes is just the guy that everybody loves. But anyway, going into the squad, there's three obvious names that stand out. It's Bradley Cross from Golden Arrows, Oswin Apollos from Polokwane City, and Jaden Adams from Stellenbosch, the so-called smaller teams. But yeah, Bradley Cross is a very, very interesting name. Come out from the Wits, Mpumalanga, Black Aces development structures. When Wits, I think, closed down, he went overseas to Schalke. And he did really well in the reserve team there for a couple of seasons. He was linked with I think Man City at one point because his defensive part, Malik Thiaw, like a wonder kid in Germany. He's
Yeah.
playing for Milan now at the moment, which shows you like
The level.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Brad was at a very high level as a junior. Obviously, he went to Newcastle for I think a season or two.
2 seasons.
He
yeah.
did really well there, but then obviously he was pushing for first team football. And in the off season, we saw him at Supersport. He was a little bit overweight because of a knee injury.
Yeah.
Which Gavin said. We saw him at Chiefs later on, and they both didn't sign him, and he ended up at Golden Arrows.
At Maritzburg first.
Oh, yes, you're right. Maritzburg got relegated, and obviously Golden Arrows took advantage of that and snapped him up. What have you made of his progression since coming to the PSL?
I think it's been impressive. I mean, I've been tracking him since last season. Before he came, I did an interview with him about just when he signed at Maritzburg. He spoke about obviously what happened at Chiefs. He did admit that he wasn't in the best of shape, but understandably so, he come from a knee injury. Then he goes to Maritzburg and they convert him to a left back.
Yeah.
You know, in Newcastle, he played as a left centre back.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not the tallest. But he's got a sweet left foot. He's got a hard work. He's got the graft. So they move him to left back, and he has a sensational season by the team standards, because obviously they weren't doing too well. Then he comes in, absolutely kills it. Arrows, obviously they snap him up. He wasn't training with them for long. He did have an assessment period, but didn't take much for them to be convinced that he's the one. And now, if you look at it, you look at Arrows' form. Is also partly a byproduct of him doing so well. I'm not saying he's solely responsible for it, but I'm saying that his one-on-one is good. You see it against the bigger teams where he manages to keep the likes of Loch. I remember against Loch, he had a stunning game. Every time it seems like the bigger the opposition, the better he becomes. So I'm not surprised to see he's been one of the most impressive players in the last few games.
And coach did mention like he was looking for a left-footed centre back. Obviously Innocent Mayela is out. The other options, I can't even think off the top of my head what other left-footed centre backs there are in the country at the moment. But yeah, he's obviously filling that gap. Because he did say on numerous occasions, I'm missing a left-footed centre-back. So obviously, not being there helps a lot. And as you said, probably his one-on-one defending is very good. And he brings him another, how can I say, option with that left foot from...
His distribution as well, because we know we do have pacey players. So obviously, if we're trying to get in behind, he can put in a delivery or two. He's also quite decent in the air, can head a ball. So I think refreshing to see him in the squad. I think it's justified. His performances definitely warranted him being selected.
And then Aussie, obviously, it's very heartwarming to see him and Jaden, junior internationals, coming from Cape Town. I know this story. Oswin was a wonder kid at Ajax, the Kamba Academy. Things didn't quite work out at Supersport. Went to Polokwane and I was like scratching my head. Obviously, Cali's first in the NFT.
Cali's,
but he's been one of the best players in the league, like hands down this season. Like he's been ridiculous. So I don't think many people can argue I mean, he's become a fan favorite already because he shows a bit of that Shugela, you know what I mean?
For sure. And I think also for him, it's a nice redemption story. Like you're saying, things weren't exactly rosy at Supersport, but then he comes and he shows his quality. It's something that we know has always been there, but now it's about fulfilling that potential. It's a difference between having potential and actually living up to it, and I think that's the most difficult part. So I'm happy for him. Polokwane played to his strengths, so you see that when things aren't going well for him, he's the go-to guy. He's the go-to guy. We know that. For his size, because he's quite small, but he packs a shot. He can take on defenders. I remember there was this one clip, I think it's still going viral, where 3 Mamelodi Sundowns players were heading to Chlorokop and he was at FNB. So you can understand why.
He's an exciting player, and that's what we need in Bafana.
Yeah, we do. I think Bafana, and I had the same problem with Pirates, that we had a lot of redundant players. The one can do what the other does. Now when we have a bit of a different flavor coming in, then it's always refreshing. I remember when
was Zwane coming into Bafana again, and Bros was like, I've never seen this before.
Exactly, because he selected so many similar players. When you bring in a player that has that individual quality, that pizzazz and the flair that we're looking for, then it's all... I remember Saleng bang when he came in.
Yeah.
He brought that, yeah.
I mean, with the four midfielders, they're always choosing like very similar, and even the fans were like pointing it out, like why you have Bunjana, Obas, Tebogo, like
Tebza
it's
and
all
Ox.
sixes or whatever.
Exactly.
But now you've got Jaden Adams there who can play as a 10 and an 8. What do you think of him? I mean, look, his numbers perhaps aren't as flattering as it should be, but if you take a close look at the way Stellenbosch play, like you said, because they're doing well, like Arrows as well, there's always going to be a couple of players who you feel are standout players.
Yeah.
But Jaden, rightfully, like you're saying, is going to bring something different. And we're playing against Benin and Rwanda, who aren't exactly world beaters.
Yeah.
They're going to maybe come with a low block, which we struggled against Namibia with a low block. We struggled against Eswatini with a low block. So we're going to need, a bit of creativity. And you think Jaden is somebody, and Aussies are those guys?
If given a chance, definitely. We see that these younger players can come in. They're fearless. They want to make a name for themselves. So why not? Funny thing with Adams is that you mentioned he can play as an 8 and a 10. He plays centre back sometimes as well. I remember
when they get red cards, they love red cards.
Yeah, when they get red cards or injuries, because also there at Stellies when it rains it pours, then you find him playing centre back. But that speaks to the intelligence of the player. He doesn't talk a lot. You hardly see him communicate, but he does a lot of his talking on the field. I watched him. I was privileged to watch him in Kosafa last year. He was with that young Bafana squad. And even there, you could see that.
Was Bradley part of that squad?
No, Bradley wasn't part of that squad. The left back we had Msani, yes. So we had him, and obviously he had a fantastic tournament. But what I'm saying is, having seen Adams up close, technically gifted, box to box. Also, we must mention that he does cover a lot of ground.
But all the I don't know what they do at that Stellies Academy of Sport, but those guys have engines. Eh?
They run the entire day. That's why a lot of teams struggle with them, because they run so much. And I think he another dimension to this Bafana.
Ticks the boxes for Bruce.
No, absolutely. And I think the challenge now is to maintain that consistency, so that when Bruce comes knocking again, he's ready. You know what I'm saying?
We're not privy to why Blom is not in, but if he's injured, then okay. But having Adams in over Blom, what do you see there? I
think it's exactly what we spoke of, bringing in a different dimension. If you look at Blom is in the same mold as Mtetwa, as a Tebza, so essentially we'd be having 5 of the same players, because Blom, yes, he does a lot, and we see in the MLS he's been killing it, but he's been killing it in a role that Tebza plays, who's the best player in the country at the moment.
And he hasn't been playing, like, even when he's been called up. I mean, imagine flying all the way from North America, and then you sitting on the bench. Like, I personally, no matter how professional
there was a campy must if you remember that. They said it's in his best interest to stay. So also, he's just come off an MLS playoff. So perhaps it's giving him a rest. I mean, it's...
Yeah, we never know. I would assume that it's an injury, because he's been in the reckoning, and the fact that the season is over, maybe it would be in the perfect time for him to come home as well, his family and things like that. Yeah. But anyway, another very pressing topic this week. I mean, yesterday, news broke with Burnley. We obviously noticed Lyle was out of the team for a couple of weeks. Burnley confirmed in a statement that he's seeking professional help from specialists, obviously with mental health, and it's something that Lyle did speak about in the media recently when he came back after his Premier League move. Yeah, he said he had depression, and the club in Belgium, Westerlo, really helped him out, got his family involved and things like that. And I mean, it was so like refreshing to see like a young, ambitious, successful guy like that, speak openly about it. But it's also very a touching matter. Like, I mean, he's got the world at his feet. He's Premier League. He's succeeding in the Premier League.
In the Premier League, yeah.
And to think that a young player like that could be so down and out that he can't even play. Like, they're saying that you get your headspace right. I think his family and the background he comes from. Like, what do you think about the situation? And as South Africa, do we do enough to support like our players? Because Lyle, he's been attacked a lot from our own fans over the years.
Yeah, so it's not the first time that he has opened up about his mental health issues. I remember, like you said, I do know the family, so I speak to them quite a bit. Remember when he was in Portugal, he was at Guimarães. Remember at the time he had signed a big money deal. He had signed
After things didn't go so well at Monaco.
At Monaco, yeah. So I think there's a lot of factors with it. Number one, you're far away from your family.
Yeah.
You alone.
He had Luther though.
He had Luther, but also who's also struggled with his own things. So now we two peas in a pod.
Yeah.
No one to really guide the other. So then things didn't go well for him in Monaco, goes to Portugal again alone, gets relegated from the main team to the B team, and at the B team he's not even playing.
Got injured a couple of
He
times.
got injured a couple of times, so
that's when self-doubt creeps in.
For sure.
Like, because
for
you're
sure.
this wonder kid, you're going to Monaco at 18, you start the first league or season, you 10 feet tall.
Think
and then
about it.
boom.
You go from training with Cesc Fabregas and Falcao to not making the B team.
Yeah.
So I think for footballers in general, not just for Lyle, for footballers in general, is that unless you have a strong sense of self, those things tend to creep in, where self-doubt, where you have these negative thoughts, and then obviously what happens with him takes one step back. Westerlo goes to the Belgian second division.
He was in the first, I think he was in the top flight of Belgium, but it also didn't do well.
Cercle Bruges, it didn't do well.
He played though. He
played, but he wasn't knocking it out the park. And
As
that's
we expected,
actually
as we
where
all
company
expected.
saw him, because if you remember, there was a game where he
there's a
played
picture,
against him, and he was killing company. in
Yeah,
that game.
you can see company was breaking
Was
his neck
lagging
there.
behind, yeah. So then after that, takes one step back, goes to the Belgian second division.
Yeah.
And I think that was what he needed, because he goes and he kills it there, gets the club promoted, and the big move comes. I think we don't realize how much pressure, number one, we put on these young footballers. And if you an outsider, you think this boy's rich.
Yeah.
He's got the world at his feet. He's driving a Lambo. Yeah. He's playing in the biggest league in the world.
And he's a smiley dude as
he's
well.
He's a smiley. He's intelligent to speak to him.
Whenever we come to Bafana camp, he's carrying the water bottles.
Yeah.
You know, we joke with him. He's the water boy. He's joking with the guys.
He's speaking to everyone.
Yeah, like he's the Premier League guy. He's like basically our marquee, our superstar.
For sure.
And he will still come to you like you know,
he's
his old
as
buds,
well.
you know.
He's humble as well. So that just goes to show that football, what we see is what footballers allow us to see.
Yeah.
But there's so much that goes on away from the camera, away from the training fields. In that moment when you're done with training,
sitting at home,
and you go to your fancy house, and between training the next morning, there's so much that happens in the life of footballers. And also, credit to him for coming out and for admitting that there's something wrong. There's so many guys who turn to alcohol, number one, drugs, girls. They go and spend money. I know of footballers who, because they are depressed, go and spend 100k on a pair of sneakers.
What do they call it again?
Retail therapy. Yeah.
Forget the price tag.
Forget the price tag. Steve Compella said, buy the sneakers. You know what I'm saying? But it's bigger than that. All the money in the world.
Exactly.
All the fame,
it's unlimited. There's only so much retail therapy you can do.
Exactly. But also, I know he's got a very close-knit family. His father, Lance, he spoke about how he quit his job to support his career.
But don't you think that is a pressure in itself? The pressure to not fulfill, but you know what I mean?
It's what I spoke about, this potential and then fulfilling that. So now also
but
you are the
pressure
superstar.
Knowing what your family did for you.
Yeah, I don't think his family looks at it to say that you need to pay us back.
Yeah.
What his family wants is for him to be a young man thriving, be happy. I'm sure if you had to ask his family today, say, would you rather have a mentally stable child who's happy and him not being a footballer, not being famous, not being as rich? And or would you have him as rich as he currently is, with the fame, but in the mental state? I'm sure they'll choose the latter. You know what I'm saying? So we want to wish him well.
Yeah.
Our thoughts and prayers are with him.
Definitely.
And we know that, like you said, he's our marquee player. So we need him on the field, but we need him in a good space mentally. He's our future. He's only 23 years old. So strongs to Lyle and to his family.
Yeah, Lyle, there's so much things that we can say about him. Like, we thought of him as the guy who's going to lead us now into the World Cup qualifiers and potentially into AFCON. So we really hope it's a speedy recovery and we need him at his best and obviously at his happiest. For club and for country. And I'm sure that a lot of people's perceptions on him will change through this period. And
not just on him. Let's hope that it changes towards general, footballers. Yeah. I think sometimes also when
it's not just a local story. This is
exactly
this international.
This is global. So perhaps if we apply it to a South African context, perhaps we need to be more mindful of the fact that our players are human beings before, and also perhaps the onus then falls on the players not to show vulnerability publicly, but to not be as closed off, because there's a facade they put on that we are exposed to. And we make judgments based off of that.
Yeah, but weaknesses also.
Exactly. It's something that as fans, as football lovers, we can address. We know that it's a reality, and we need to be more cognizant of it.
Yeah, moving on to the next. I mean, we obviously now have a void without Lyle there. Lebo did play against Ivory Coast. I think his position in the team is something not many fans understand. Like, I was live at the game, and what I noticed about him is that he kept the defense busy. Like, Ivory Coast have Diomande, who plays for Sporting Lisbon, or Willy Bolly, who's a seasoned Premier League footballer. They didn't have a clean header in that game. But you don't see it that way. You see a long ball and you see Lebo, like, he's bullying the guys.
Hustling and bustling,
People see, okay, he won, but they don't see that there's no aerial battle anymore. And Tembazwane is looking like prime Riquelme. Because of the dirty work this other guy is doing. So obviously there's an option of that. Maybe the question mark is Lebo is not bringing us enough goals, but he is making Mshishi, a free roll. And then we have Zakes, who we know has the ability to score goals, but he's going through a little bit of a dip in form. What do you think of the 9 position going into obviously Benin and Rwanda? And like we said, it's not gonna be pound for pound. It's gonna be probably a low block, and I'm sure we can only name like a handful of Benin and Rwandan players at the moment, so we're not gonna really break down what they're gonna bring, but what can we bring to the table? Yeah,
so what I would like to see, because Mutiba is as busy as he is, I call him busy because for the entire 90 minutes he moves, keeps that defense busy.
Generator.
He is a generator, exactly. And we see that at Strasbourg as well, where he was named the player of the month. Yes. So something tells me that there's a resurgence. It's also
playing under a legend.
He is
a legend.
He is.
Patrick
Vieira,
guys. Like, I mean,
not for the first time though. If you remember, he comes from the Diambas Academy, which was headed up by Vieira and then a few other legends. So it's a reunion of some sort. What I would like to see, ideally, is that if we do go with Mutiba, right, then we need to have someone with a different profile close to him, I think.
Longwane?
So that perhaps at Longwane, perhaps someone who can run in behind. Why I say that is because if Lebo's going up and he's challenging, he's winning those aerial duels, what then happens to the second ball? What happens to the knockdown?
Ideally we should be looking at Percy and Mshishi.
And Mshishi playing closer, so almost having
two tens.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because we know he is going to win a lot of the balls. We know that there are going to be knockdowns. There are going to be moments when he holds it up. We need someone to be running onto that. So I would go, based on form at the moment, I would go Mutiba first, but then have 2 10s playing, maybe even an Adams. I know it's throwing him into the deep end, but have 2 10s that play off of his busyness.
Yeah, but I mean, we also have some good fullbacks that can also facilitate some attacking cohesion Like
The best right back
I know.
in the
Honestly,
country.
it's weird. You hardly ever see a right back being singled out. I think that is one of the most unheralded positions in world football.
For sure.
Like it's the one guy, right back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can put anyone.
Yeah, we play a right winger there or whatever. You were sent. Oh no, we play. But this guy, like literally, if he's playing Wydad, if he's playing Al Ahly, if he's playing Ivory Coast, keeping Zaha in the pocket. Every journalist and fan or social media is like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And like really, like where has he been all these years, man? Like honestly, he's been impressive.
It's a testament of coaching at Mamelodi Sundowns. He's been this guy at Black Leopards. Only thing is when you're doing it in the shadows, perhaps the exposure is not what it is now. And then also now you go and pocket Wilfred Zaha. There's Premier League defenders who for years have struggled to do that.
Definitely.
Then he comes. What I love about him, again, off the field, is boring. Have you ever spoken to him?
Yeah, he met Tebza, same WhatsApp group.
Same
They
WhatsApp
like
group.
Football, eat, sleep, football.
They're about their work, and that's it. There's something that he has that I haven't seen in a lot of players. If you are the winger, he allows you to come. It doesn't go so that he allows you to come.
Yeah, like
and you do your thing, but then he has this timing where and sliding tackles in the box.
But as a winger, if somebody is not pressing you, you have that self-doubt like, yo, this guy is so confident.
He's so confident.
He's allowing me the line here. And you know he has that pace.
There's a lot of players in my interviews that I have spoken to and asked them.
Always say,
They say, because he's got everything. He's got aggression. He's got speed. He's got power. He can take you on. He can make it a nightmare for you.
Yeah,
even
because
as a
now
winner,
you on attack. You think, okay, we're going for a goal. He dispossesses you, and then you have to turn around and run after
exactly.
him.
So
I can
top
imagine.
player. I know he's what, 27, 28?
I think he's 28 now. Yeah.
So long may it continue because also we haven't had a right back like him in a long time.
Yeah, let's hope Bruce has been watching the same games that we've been watching. But look, if you think about this now, Benin and Rwanda, ideally we should be getting 6 points.
For sure.
Ideally.
For sure.
Benin at home, obviously Moses Mabhida on the 18th of November. Like we said, we hope that it's a packed crowd. A lot of people have been discussing it. Like the attendance figures has been whack. So let's hope that people come out to Moses Mabhida Stadium. Kickoff is at 3. Obviously a home game, we want to beat Benin. Rwanda is also not giant killers. Away from home it might be difficult, but
we have those Sundowns. We have 8 Sundowns players who deal with
traveling,
and they are a core part of our squad. We know, so hopefully that experience also comes to the fore for us.
But the reason why I'm emphasizing on the 6 points is because if you look at Group C, I think the top 2 go through. If I'm not mistaken, nine teams in CAF go through for the extended 48 team World Cup 2026. We've got in Group C is Nigeria, South Africa, Benin, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, and Lesotho. So after these 2 games, the next, I think it's AFCON, and then the next international break, we're playing Zimbabwe and Nigeria.
Yeah, which is significantly tougher teams.
Yeah, Zimbabwe is our... They love spoiling the party for us.
They
and
do.
Nigeria, we don't need
They
to say
do.
much. But yeah, so do you think it's a must-win games for both these games?
No, absolutely. These games, the one thing that disappoints me about Bafana sometimes is that these ones that we're supposed to win, those are the ones that we really struggle with.
And then we go to Uyo and we beat
Then we're
Osimhen.
going, yeah, exactly. We're going to beat Nigeria in Nigeria. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I would prefer that the ones we're supposed to win, ideally we win those. You know what I'm saying? So like you said, these aren't world beaters, Benin, Rwanda. And also having checked the stats, we have quite a decent record against both teams. Whenever we've faced them, we've looked like or we've got the better results. So definitely I think that if we what we tend to do is reserve our best performances for the Moroccos, for the Ivory Coasts. But if we can have that same performances, I know they say your performance depends on the quality of the opposition, but if we're better than them, show them on the field.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I'm being honest, a lot of beating these smaller teams is attitude and mindset.
For sure.
And the funny thing is, Hugo is questioning one player's attitude now. actually Blom about injury. He's saying that he was injured, and then a couple of days later he messaged, he said he's ready to play. I don't know if they're getting lost in translation because Bruce often doesn't hear your question. You've noticed he doesn't hear your questioning.
True.
But look, I mean, he's questioning his attitude here now, and that's probably why he's not in the squad. But yeah, there was some rumors of players not playing for the badge.
For the badge, yeah.
Like like Springboks and like the Protea Fire, so to say. But with these major competitions, AFCON and the World Cup coming up, I do think that we're going to see a change in mentality, because a lot of these players know that they'll be playing for their futures.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's the scouts is going to be at AFCON, the scouts is going to be at the World Cup. So honestly, like you said, I think it's definitely 6 points we need to be targeting, and the proof is going to be in the pudding. I do think we're going to do well. I do think that we've built a solid squad over the last few years. Might not be at the biggest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
But, in football, you can create a successful national team without that.
Yeah, true. And also, what's the purpose of having players abroad if they aren't playing? If we have guys that are in the top 5 leagues in Europe and they're playing, then it's a different conversation.
Nigeria, for example, they haven't won anything like over the last few years, and they've got they could probably select the 23-man squad of elite strikers. You know what I mean? So it's not always the answer to anything. But yeah, I think we've covered our bases for today.
Yeah.
Honestly, now it's just about getting into the games, getting into preparation. I'm sure you'll be at the opening day of the camp. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it at there. I know you've got a lot of things to do. Thank you for coming. And discussing and breaking down, obviously, the Bafana squad with us today. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode. And yeah, we'll be keeping in touch with the future of this podcast, and we'll be having more guests over the next couple of months. So yeah, that was the first episode, and thank you guys for tuning in. Yo guys, for the freshest football content, follow 10Bet South Africa on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube.